Hey there, welcome to another episode of Smooth Stories, where we talk about various stories and read them aloud in a smooth, calming way. Today we have a special treat for you. It's the complete collection of Hans Christian Andersen, and we're going to pick out a story and give it a nice little look through and, have just a good old time. Now let's pick out a good one. Let's see here. Okay, here's one. Alrighty, this is A Rose from the Grave of Homer. All the songs of the East tell of the love of the nightingale for the rose. In the silent starlit nights, the winged songster serenade his fragrant flower. Not far from Smyrna, under the lofty plane trees, where the merchant drives his loaded camels that proudly lift their long necks and tramp clumsily over the holy ground, I saw a hedge of roses. Wild pigeons flew among the branches of the high trees, and their wings glistened while a sunbeam glided over them, as if they were of mother o' pearl. The rose hedge bore a flower which was the most beautiful among all, and the nightingale sang to her of his woes. But the rose was silent, not a dewdrop lay, like a tear of sympathy, upon her leaves. She bent down over a few great stones. Here rests the greatest singer of the world, said the rose. Over his tomb will I pour out my fragrance, and on it I will let fall my leaves when the storm tears them off. He who sang of Troy became earth, and from that earth I have sprung. I arose from the grave of Homer, am too lofty to bloom for a poor nightingale. And the nightingale sang himself to death. The camel driver came with his loaded camels and his black slaves. His little son found the dead bird and buried the little songster in the grave of the great Homer. And the rose trembled in the wind. The evening came, and the rose wrapped her leaves more closely together and dreamed thus. It was a fair, sunshiny day. A crowd of strangers drew near, for they had undertaken a pilgrimage to the grave of Homer. Among the strangers was a singer from the north, and the home of clouds and of northern lights. He plucked the rose, placed it in a book, and carried it away into another part of the world, to his distant fatherland. The rose faded with grief, and lay in the narrow book which he opened in his home, saying, "Here is a rose from the grave of Homer. This is the flower dreamed," and she awoke and trembled in the wind. A drop of dew fell from the leaves upon the singer's grave. The sun rose, the day became warm, and the rose glowed more beauteous than before. She was in her own warm Asia. Then footsteps were heard, and Frankish strangers came, such as the rose had seen in her dream. And among the songsters was a poet from the north. He plucked the rose, pressed a kiss upon her fresh mouth, and carried her away to the home of the clouds and of the northern lights. Like a mummy, the flower corpse now rests in his Iliad, and as in a dream, she hears him open the book and say, "Here's a rose from the grave of Homer." All right, and that's going to do it for this episode of Smooth Stories. Please like and subscribe and leave comments below. And remember, be kind to yourself and to others, and have a great day. Bye.